Hello, I am Michael Ribnick of Unanet's Enterprise Engineering team. The purpose of this video is to review the features and capabilities of Unanet's Project Management Scoreboard, formerly known as the Advanced Project Management Dashboard. The scoreboard is a business intelligence tool built in Microsoft Excel. It uses Excel the way it was meant to be used. This is to say that 100% of the data in this workbook comes from Unanet and is refreshable with the click of a button. We are merely using Excel to format and manipulate the data in order to turn it into a visual display containing actionable intelligence. When you open up the scoreboard, you will see that it consists of two main parts. The first are the visual displays that you see on the worksheet itself. You will be viewing and interacting with these. You will also see a custom ribbon within Excel labeled PMSB. This ribbon gives you access to report filters, different configuration options, the ability to toggle different views, access knowledge center information, etc. And we're going to be going over all these features one by one. I'd like to first start by reviewing this top middle section of the project management scoreboard called the project selector. Now, the project selector is very simple in that it is a mechanism that allows you to make a project selection, as I am doing here. And you can see that when I am making a project selection, there are a few things that are changing in the scoreboard itself. So when I selected this project, the performance chart in the bottom center changed to reflect information specific to that project. Key metrics in the top right changed as well. And finally, project notes in the bottom right-hand corner changed to reflect only the notes specific to that project. So at a high level, the project selector is this mechanism allows you to select projects. But what happens if you have more than 10 projects? You can see here that I can see 10 projects at a time. Now it is a scrollable list, but what happens if I have 150 projects? It might not be the best use of my time to click on every single one of those projects and see how those projects are doing. And so the project selector has a built-in mechanism that allows you to sort this list of projects based on key metrics that are important to you and simply look at the projects that are struggling to meet those metrics and focus on those and to manage by exception. And so let's go over that feature. And to do this, I'm going to zoom in on the project selector list. The project selector has several columns. The first one is project code. And you can see when I clicked on project code, it is actually a drop-down box. And when I click on the drop-down, there are 5 different options for display. So if I want to look at the project title instead of the project code, I can do that. If I want to drill down to the task level, I can do that as well. And if I want to see the combination of the project code and task name, I can do that as well. The second column is billing type, and this does not have any configuration options. The third column allows you to look at either the project manager or the project lead. The fourth column allows you to look at either the owning org or the project org. But the power of the project selector really lies in these last 4 columns. Each one of these columns gives you access to 80 different project performance related metrics. And while that sounds like a lot and can be overwhelming, when you look at the metrics in more detail, you'll discover that there's really only about 12 different metrics in there. So let's go over a few of them. The first 3 metrics are just information that is in a project profile. So the funded value, the total value, and the bill dollar value. After that, there is a series of revenue metrics. You can see a bunch of different revenue metrics. And so taking up 80 of these 80 metrics, there are a whole bunch of them that are just revenue metrics, and they're merely revenue displayed at different points in time. So this top one here is showing planned revenue. Whereas if we go down here, this is inception to date actual revenue, and we have revenue at completion as well. So these are just different ways of looking at revenue. we scroll down, there's revenue variance metrics. So those are computing the difference between forecasted and planned revenue. There are backlog metrics, which are the difference between either total value or funding value and your forecast. And the selection of total or funding value occurs in a form in the ribbon, and I'll go over that later. You can see cost metrics, and costs can be displayed as either raw costs or total cost, depending on selections that you make. Cost variance, profitability in terms of dollars, profitability variance, average bill rate, profitability as a percentage, profit percentage variance, funding percentage expended, hours variance, the estimated workday that you go at risk on a project, the estimated workday that you exceed 75% of the funding value on a project, and the start date and end date. And so the way that the project selector works is you click on one of these radio buttons above the columns, and that will sort the list of projects based on that metric. So you can sort the list of projects in either ascending or descending order by hitting this toggle switch here. So what you would do is find a metric that is important to you. In this case, I'm going to choose this backlog EAC forecast, and I'm going to sort the list as it is, which is in descending order. And what this metric is it describes the difference between our forecasted revenue and our funding value. So this is going to show me projects that are either leaving a lot of money on the table or are severely overrun. And the way that the sorting works is for any metric that is a variance type metric, where you're looking at the difference between two values, this is going to sort the list of projects based on the absolute value of that metric so that you can see extreme cases either way. So here I'm seeing all of my projects, the extreme cases for backlog. So this project is underrun by nearly $10 million. This one is overrun by nearly $3.5 million. And that's what's going on there. Now, it is probably the case that there are more than 4 metrics that you like to look at for your projects. And admittedly, it would take a significant effort every time you wanted to look at different metrics to go through this list of metrics, make a selection, go through this one, make a selection, etc. So we have added into the ribbon an option called Metric Config, available here. And when you click on that, you can load, save, or delete configurations of metrics. So what you would do is set 4 metrics that are important to you, and then come into this box and hit New, and it would save a new line item of the metric here. And so you can easily load it later. Okay. So one more thing to note about the technology that we're using to bring the data into Excel. It leverages Unanet's roles and organization access. And what that means is, since I have logged into our sample database here as an administrator, I can see all of our projects. But if I were to log in as a project manager, I would only be able to see a subset of those projects that I'm allowed to see in the system. And that's a neat feature as well. Additionally, let's go back to the example. If I have 150 projects, I can only see 10 at a time, but I can utilize report filters in the custom ribbon to look at subsets of projects. And the report filters that exist include project code filters, project title, project org and owning org, project manager and project lead, project type and billing type, project status and condition, and start date and end date. It's very easy to apply filters. Let's say that I wanted to look at projects that only include the string C03 in the project code. I would simply go into project code contains and type in C03 and hit enter. And when I do that, the project selector will filter projects accordingly. Now, you actually have the ability to enter more than one value into this list. It is a semicolon delimited list. So if I wanted to include projects that were either contains C03 or the word space, I would just have a semicolon in between them and hit enter. And you can see now that the list includes Space Station, the Space Station project. Now let's say I wanted to filter by project org or owning org or one of these other filters, but I can't remember what my owning orgs are. You have an option to access this advanced filters menu in the ribbon. You click on that. And in the advanced filtering form, you would simply choose one of the filters here. So say I wanted to filter by project manager. The box on the left would filter to show you all of the available project managers, and you would just make a couple of selections and hit the arrows over to apply the filter. And when you do, you can see that the project list filtered and the project manager contains box was entered the information that you selected. And so these type of advanced filters are available for all of the filters in this report filters ribbon except for the start dates and end dates. Okay, at any given time you can also clear all of your filters to get back to the original state. Okay. Now one relatively new feature of the scoreboard is that we implemented a drill down capability. So of these 80 metrics that are available to you, 73 of them actually have drill downs that will show you that value in Unanet itself. The other 7 don't have a drill down that will take you to Unanet, but it's easy to see how they're computed based on other metrics in the dashboard. So for example, there are several ETC metrics in here, and you can simply see that computation by looking at the difference between the EAC and the actual to date metrics. And those metrics are drill downs into reports in Unanet. But let's go into an example. So when you look at a number here that looks interesting to you, all you would do is click on it. And when you do, it drills down and opens up a report in Unanet, and it makes some highlights for you. If you see 2 things highlighted, that means that the metric itself is the difference between those 2 values. If you see one value highlighted, that is simply the value. And that is drill down reporting. Similarly, at any time you can click on the project code itself to go to the project profile. And this is an active browser. So if you have the role in the system to make changes in the project profile, you could simply do them here and hit save, just like you would if you were logged into Unanet via Chrome or Internet Explorer or Firefox. Additionally, this menu has additional reporting capability if you hit this arrow to the right button. You can see there are different drill down options. So if I wanted to look at month to date actuals, and I want to look at hours, and I want to show people, I could make those selections and hit submit, and it's going to go to your system and run the report based on the project that you select and the options you made here. So I'm looking at all my people and the hours they charge for the month. If I wanted to, I could select labor categories, hit submit again, and now I'm looking at both people and labor categories. If I wanted to only look at labor categories, I could make another change there. And so that's drill down reporting. This is also a new feature of the scoreboard, and it was designed to give some level of insight into transactional level data. Previously, the scoreboard was designed really to just show high-level project performance metrics, but now you have the ability to look at a high-level metric and drill down to individual people or expenses. Okay, and that is the project selector. The bottom middle section of the project management scoreboard is what we call the project performance chart. And to manipulate the chart, you can access this chart options menu in the ribbon, which I'm going to do so now. And I think it's helpful to unselect several of these series and only show this total value to start. Now, the project performance chart was really designed to visually depict our advanced project management process, what we call the advanced project management process. And really what this process is about, it's about establishing a goal for your projects, developing a plan to achieve that goal, and then as we work on the project, looking at the difference between actuals to date and our forecast at completion against that plan to see how we're doing. And if we're veering from the plan, we can make course corrections as necessary. But it all starts out with the total value, which is represented as this series with two purple parallel lines. Okay. You can also see the funded value, which is a solid green line. And there is a dotted green line that shows you 75% of the funded value. Now this is a fully funded job, so when I click both total value and funded value, you'll see that the total value and funded value are right on top of each other. Now as part of our project management process, we recommend that you put together a baseline. And in this sample, baseline is the combination of people plans and expense plans for your project. So when I hit show baseline, it will be displayed as a solid blue line on the chart. Now, as you begin working on the project, you're going to incur actual costs. And that's depicted with the solid red line. And then the combination of actual costs plus people assignments and expense budgets will get you your estimate at completion. So I see my solid red line plus a dotted red line to the end of the period of performance. And then there are visual indicators that show you the variance between your performance at the current time and at the end of period of performance. Now, if you internally as a process use something different for your baseline, so instead of plans, maybe use assignments, or instead of active plans, you use a plan set, that's fine. We can configure the dashboard to work for you that way. And similarly, if for your forecasts, you instead of assignments and expense budgets, use active plans or a plan set, we can make that change as well. Additionally, while I'm displaying total revenue over time by default here, you can adjust the project performance chart to display revenue, either gross margin or net profit based on a selection that you make in another form in the window. I will go over in a little bit. You can display cost, either total cost or raw costs, again, based on the selection that you make. You can display hours over time or bill rate over time. We find generally that this chart speaks a similar language that our customers, project managers are used to speaking. I found in my experience that a lot of project managers are manually producing a chart that looks something like this. And so the scoreboard will automatically produce this for all of the projects that they can see. And that's a really neat feature. Now I want to go back to something that we looked at earlier, and that's when we filtered the project selector to only show us projects that included the string C03. Let's say that C03 represented a contract and our customer provided us this contract, but for the purposes of internal management of that project, we broke it out into 5 projects in Unanet so that we could manage them as different buckets of money. But what's important to the customer is the roll-up or aggregate of those projects. We have the ability in the scoreboard to do that roll-up. So you'll see to start in the project selector, the very bottom row will show you the aggregate of the metrics that you selected across all projects that are meeting the criteria. So that's one thing that you could look at. But additionally, at any given time, you can hit this roll-up projects button in the PMSB ribbon. And when you do, all of the sections in the scoreboard that are highlighted in green are now rolled up or aggregated across all the projects that meet the criteria you specified. So that's another neat feature. There is an additional way to perform that roll-up in the project selector. I'll show you this now. Actually, this is in the settings window. So when I click on settings, I have a new form here. We had some customers that had a need to roll up projects to a certain character level. So all of my projects up to 5 characters, that is a unique identifier. I want to roll up my projects that way. And you can do this in the settings and thresholds form, which I accessed in the settings button here. In general settings, there's a box called project rollup. So let's say, again, using my C03 example, I want to roll up projects, but I only want to see one project in the project selector for C03. I can use this feature and roll up the projects to 3 characters and hit submit. And when you do that, you can see that I only see the unique 3-character projects available to me, and I can select my C03 project, and I'm going to get the same chart that I looked at before. Okay. So I'm going to change that setting, go back to our Starbright project. In the top right of the scoreboard, there's a section called Key Metrics. And this is where you can display key metrics related to your project. You can only see 3 at a time. You have available to you, however, in the settings menu, a section called Key Metrics. And this will let you set which metrics that you want to be your key metrics. And you can choose 3 from a list of 6. And these are all metrics that are showing you some type of variance at completion for the project. So the goal here is we want to look forward. We want to see how our forecasts are doing relative to our plans. We want to see how our forecasts are doing relative to our funded value or total value, etc. And that's what this section is all about. If we look at the charts, we can see how they're visually depicting this information. So the chart itself consists of a black triangle, and that shows you where you are. There is a light gray band, and that shows you your corporate threshold for that metric. Okay, and so the idea here is you just want to make sure the black triangle is in that light gray area, and you can set that threshold in the settings form. So if I go here, you can see for backlog EAC forecast, I've said it's okay to be between -2 and 0%, which is saying it's okay to underrun the project by 2%, but we don't want to overrun the project. So maybe 2% is our management reserve. We definitely don't want to overrun the project. But if internally you guys have a 5%, if you have a 5% management reserve, you can make that change here, and you'll see that the light gray band expanded. So fundamentally, these metrics are designed so that you can quickly scroll through and make sure that the black triangle is on the light gray band. You can see for profit percentage variance, it is not. We were very hopeful that we could complete this job at 100% profitability, which is not realistic, and we ended up at 24.97. So we're -75% relative to our original plan. And for hours variance, again, we didn't plan any hours, but we forecasted a bunch of hours, so we are overrun our plan. And that is key metrics. Another one of the new features of the scoreboard is a project notes section. Now, based on a project you select, notes will be displayed in this box. So I'm going to make a project selection that includes notes. You'll see when I did that, it's populated with notes showing the note title and the note type here. You can filter this list of notes by different types. So if I only wanted to look at my contract modifications, I could do that. and it showed me them here. We added this feature based on customer demand, and we found that it's been extremely helpful for our customers. Project Notes is an underutilized, in my opinion, an underutilized feature of the Unanet software. And fundamentally what it is, it's a mechanism for communicating internally. So if you look at contract modifications, for example, I've been in situations where I needed to look at a contract modification. It was somewhere in my email. I couldn't find it. I'm looking through emails all day. And here you would simply select contract modification as your note type, and then you can click on the note title, and it will actually take you to the note in Unanet itself, and you can view the attachment or view the actual modification. And so this is a very neat way of communicating internally. As soon as someone enters a note related to my project, if I hit refresh on my dashboard, I'm going to see that note visually depicted here. So in addition to looking at notes specific to a project, I find that this is neat as kind of looking at portfolio list of notes. So if I were to hit that roll up projects button, it's going to show all notes across all my projects. And this is neat because if I have notes that depict action items, issues, or risks, I could look at all of my risks or all of my issues, all of my action items across my entire portfolio, and I can focus on those. And lastly, I'll say by default, the list of notes will show you notes where the completion date is greater than or equal to today's date, meaning, the completion date isn't filled out or something like that. It'll show you non-completed notes. But at any given time, you could select include completed to see all notes related to a project as well. That was project notes. You can scroll back out. Now we're going to look at the section in the top left. Section is called process adherence, and these are high-level metrics that measure how well we're performing our project management process. And again, this is a relatively simple process where we're planning projects, we're putting plans on projects, we're forecasting projects, and then we're making sure that our plans are good and our forecasts are good, and we're making changes as necessary. And so the way that this process adherence section works is it's kind of like a checklist that fills itself out automatically as you do things in the system. And I find that that's really neat. And I'll go through all the metrics now. So the first box is saying, what percentage of applicable projects? So applicable is defined as projects that have a total value on them and have an active period of performance. What percentage of those projects have plans? We don't care whether the plans are any good or not yet. We just want to know, is someone going in and putting in a plan? The second metric is saying, okay, what percentage of applicable projects, in this case projects with a funded value on it and have an active period of performance, what percentage of them have some forecast going forward? And the third and fourth metrics are attempting to assess the quality of those plans and assignments. So of those projects that have plans, what percentage of them are planned within a certain percentage of the total value? And of those projects with forecasts, what percentage of them are forecasted within a certain percentage of the funded value? And those percentages are things that you can manipulate in your settings menu here under the process adherence section. So I've defined forecast against funded value, plans against total value. The threshold is 2.5% for both. And I want to highlight metrics that are less than 80%. Now, what I really like about this section is when you click or when you see one of these metrics and you're kind of disturbed by it, you can simply click on the metric and it will filter the project selector to show you the projects that are failing to meet that metric. So 9 out of 10 of my applicable projects have a plan on them, but one doesn't. I click on this and I see the project that doesn't. And this is a really neat feature because it shows you the things that you need to do in the system. And that is one of the reasons why I recommend the Project Management Scoreboard as not just a tool for project management, but it's also an adoption tool as well. as far as adoption of the Unanet system is concerned. Now, I had a customer come to me and say, we really like this tool. We really want to implement it, but we're not currently doing plans, and we're not currently turning those plans into assignments. So we're going to learn all that stuff, and we're going to come back to you, and we're going to implement this tool. And we actually recommended the opposite. We said, how about we implement the tool, and by default, it's going to show you how bad your plans and forecasts are because you don't have any. And then you can simply use the tool to help you do your planning and forecasting. And by that, I mean, when they start out, they're probably going to see this top number be something like 0, 10%. Very few of the projects have plans. And as they begin to enter plans in the system and refresh the scoreboard, this number is going to change to reflect that. On a similar notion, I think it's neat to have the metrics that are available in the project selector and the project performance chart as a visual feedback for the information that you're entering in the system. So imagine if you were to put the project management scoreboard on one monitor, you put your Unanet planning grid on another monitor, you enter things in the planning grid, hit refresh on the scoreboard, and then boom, you see your plan line depicted on the project. That is a neat feature that I think helps people, one, understand how to plan better and encourages use of the system. So that's process adherence. Similarly, there's an other metrics section. This consists of two at-risk metrics. One is projects that are currently at risk, so their actuals exceed the funded value. And then the second one is metrics that are either currently or forecasted to be at risk in the future. And these work similar to the process adherence metrics, where you would click on it and this would show you the at-risk projects. So you can see here, currently at risk, this project's actuals are here and its funded value is here. So that is the project performance portion of the scoreboard. Now, we had a customer come to us and say, hey, we like this a lot, but we would also like to be able to visually see performance on a fiscal year basis. And so we tweaked the scoreboard to give you the ability to just toggle from a project performance view to a fiscal year view. And to do that, you simply hit the switch view button. And when you do that, there's a few things that change. What used to be called the process adherence section on the left-hand side is now fiscal year performance. And this is 4 metrics that show you projects that are exceeding their year-to-date revenue and profit plans, and 2 metrics that show you projects that are exceeding their year-end revenue and profit plans. And this works similar to the process adherence section, where if you clicked on one of these options, it would show you all of the projects that are behind their plan. Similarly, you can see in the project performance chart, instead of showing projects for their entire period of performance, we're only looking at the current fiscal year. So in this database, we have a fiscal year that goes from October to September, and you can see that we have planned to be here, and we're actually at here, and so this one is exceedingly behind plan. Finally, in the top right section is what used to be key metrics is now financial metrics. And these are a series of charts that visually depict percentage of your targets achieved. So let's go over that. These charts are called bullet charts. The way that they work is that the vertical red line represents your target. That's your plan. And that represents 100% of your target. The black bar going from left to right shows you the percentage that you have achieved. And there are different shades of gray depicting 0 to 50%, 50 to 75%, and 75% and above. And so these charts are designed to let you very quickly scan and see metrics that are ahead or behind target, and to get an idea of the severity of that aheadness or behindness. So looking at this, it looks like I'm at roughly 110% of plan, roughly 35% of plan, again, 110%, 35%. And these are called bullet charts. And then on the right-hand side, the big number is your variance. So I'm ahead of my plan by $30,000, and then you can see the actual number as well as the planned value. And one thing that I really like about this fiscal year view is if you recall that roll up projects button, I can hit that. And now I'm looking at my entire portfolio for the fiscal year, how I'm doing. And I find that those are key metrics for an organization. All right. Couple of things that I haven't covered yet. One is just like the metric configuration option, where you could save and load different configurations of those 4 key metrics in the project selector, there's also a chart configuration option that allows you to save and load different configurations of these filters. Additionally, in the settings menu, under general settings, you can determine how profitability is computed, and similarly how cost is computed, so you can toggle between displaying gross margin or net profit. There is a sanitize button here, and what this does, I'm not going to hit this button now, but if I hit this button, what it does is it wipes out all the data in the dashboard so that we have a sanitized version of the dashboard. And that would be the template that you provide to your team. So you wouldn't want to refresh this as an administrator and then send it out to all your PMs, because then they would be able to see all of the projects. So you simply hit sanitize, it wipes out all the information. That's your template that you send to your team. They refresh and they'll be able to see only the stuff that they can see. One additional feature that we've added is the ability for the user to create a PowerPoint presentation of their portfolio. And so the way that that works is that there is a PowerPoint staging worksheet in the workbook. And you can see within this worksheet that there is a light gray border around a certain area, and everything within that border is going to go on your slide for a specific project. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to manipulate this to create a slide. I'm going to first go back and switch to my project performance view because that's what I wanted to depict. And then we'll go back here. Now, as part of your scoreboard package, we will train your folks on how to use this section. We imagine that everyone will want to create slightly different PowerPoint slides, but we structure the workbook in such a way that it's relatively easy to start creating slides pretty quickly. So I'll give you an example. Excel has a tool called the camera tool, and when you access the camera tool, what it does is it can take a picture of a certain place in a workbook and display that picture. And what I have done is I have named a range in the workbook called Pick Project Performance Chart. So if I wanted to include the chart on my slide, I just set the camera to show that range. And let's say similarly, I wanted to show the key metrics. What I could do is maybe create some space, and I could go back to my camera tool, create an image, and specify I want the image to be pick key metrics. Then I got my key metrics here, and maybe I make it smaller. And then additionally, we structure the workbook so that it would be very easy with some simple training to add metrics onto the scoreboard. So let's say I wanted to display something as simple as the funded value of a project. I could do that, and I'm going to borrow a formula that I've used previously. And then just quickly manipulate the formula to display funded value. There. And that's it. So in a few brief moments, we've created a PowerPoint slide. Obviously, this could include different pictures, different metrics based on your choice. That's fundamentally how you do it. So once you have your template set up, you would go back to your dashboard, access your PMSB ribbon, and all you would do is select a project. So in this case, I've selected Starbright, and then hit the PowerPoint button. And when you do that, it creates a slide for Starbright. And then similarly, I could, make another selection, hit the PowerPoint button, and maybe make one more selection, and hit the PowerPoint button. And when you go back to your PowerPoint presentation, you will see that I now have 3 slides for those 3 projects. And that's it. I want to thank you for watching this video on the Project Management Scoreboard. If you are interested in the tool, either pricing information or have any technical questions, please contact customersolutions@unanet.com. Additionally, I would note that what we've reviewed today is a standard configuration of the scoreboard. We have customers that tweak this based on their own business rules and processes. And if you're interested in customizations, we would be happy to talk to you about that before purchasing. Thank you very much.